Hello, this is Charlie. We are back for our final signature, and it's going to go here on this back right panel. And I've got it all somewhat organized. Okay, this is what we're going to use for a base page. This final piece measures at 8.5 inches across by your 8 3/4 in your height. I'm going to make a side pocket, and I've cut one of the little tags out of the A4 paper, and then I'm going to line it with some gold bling. But before we get there, in the A4 paper, there was this cutout and this cutout. So I trimmed them out, and off that same sheet of paper, I cut two pieces that I glued together so that you have actually a little photo album. So now to get there, I had to make a hinge. So that hinge measured 2.5 inches, and you're scoring it at a 1/2 inch, at 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, and at 2 inches. And then you're going to fold it accordion style. And then you're going to glue or tape this to one end. And then you're going to either glue or tape this one to the other end, so that what you have then are these two pieces. And they're still accordion. So you need to come in on this back side and glue or tape so that you can seal these closed. What you want to end up with is a booklet. So when you're done with that, you have this one piece that's standing up. So you will come in and you will cut from the same stock of paper two pieces that are going to measure, mine measured at 4 7/8 by 3 7/8. And you're going to glue them onto this peak that you have here, and then when you get both sides glued on, then you will glue and seal the two together. And then using the same piece of paper, I came in and I cut a strip that's 3/8 of an inch wide to hide this gold seam that you have here. So then when you bring your photos in, you're going to actually cover that up. I'm getting ahead of myself. There's a magnet here, and there's a magnet here. But using the same paper, I cut a 1 inch strip. I put my magnets down, and then I covered them. Now, when you come in and you put a photo in, this will hold a 3.5 by, let's say, 4 3/4 photo. So you've got this one, this one, this one, and this one. So this little booklet, using a magnet closure, will hold 4 photos. Okay, so it's pretty easy to make. Nothing too difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and get this done. This is going to measure at 2 1/4 inches by your 8 3/4. And we'll get this removed here. And I'm going to come down here in this corner, square it up. I cut that too long, so hold on here just a second. All right. Now I bet I'm going to have to trim this one. Yes, I am. So I'm just going to take my scissors, and I'm just going to trim a little bit off the bottom. And then I will glue these together. Okay. And then I have my Bling. Put that on there, even them out just a little bit. There we go, and then here's my tag. This is a journaling tag, so you can use whatever tag you want, but I'm using a journaling tag so that notes can be placed, you know, dates, times, places, people. So now this will come in here. Oh, for Pete's sake. And that will snug in right there. Now, the next two flaps are going to be the same measurement. So the left side, as well as the right side, will come in at 6.5 inches across by 8 3/4 in your height. You have a 1/2 inch score and a 5/8 of an inch score. And I'm going to bring my work right up to that 1/2 inch score line. And then we will do the same for the right side. Again, it's at 6.5 by 8 3/4, 1/2 inch, 5/8 of an inch score line. This one's going to have a little bit of bulk behind it because of the pocket that we just installed, but this should lay over without any problem. Okay, so now we will get, second. Now on the inside here, I used this paper to trim out both sides, and it matched the paper I pulled out of my scraps, so that there was kind of a continuous theme across here. I'm just going to simply glue these down. Right now there aren't any magnets involved. Careful of the score lines. And I'm going to go ahead and install this on the left side, because the next step we just kind of want to do it all at once. Now, these internal pages are going to have some short waterfalls on them. We're going to have one up here, and we're going to have one down here. And then we're going to kind of repeat that. I might be off camera here a bit, but we're going to repeat it on the left side. So in your scraps, there are very few strips that will give you the height and the length that you need in order to do this. So discovering that, when I cut this top piece, I also cut from it a matching piece so that I could do that 1/2 inch hinge, or 1/2 inch end here on the waterfall. It's just a 2-page waterfall. It will hold 4 photos. These measure 5.5 inches in length by 3.5 inches in their height, and you have a 1/2 inch score. So I went ahead and mounted mine on a 1-inch piece of paper or cardstock so that I can just simply drop this in here where I needed it to be. And then I'm going to cover this And then I will cover this. Okay, and then I will tape the back of this. And I'll just use 2 strips of 1/2-inch tape. And yes, I'm off camera, I'm sorry. So that one's ready to go in, but I want to make the next one before I do, so I get them balanced here on the page. So we'll get the tape here on the back. There it is. So we'll just do it this way. This will get glued on the front. And then the same thing, I cut from that same piece, a 1/2-inch for the end here. And then these will line up in here. And then once we get these in, if I measured correctly, this last spot hanging here, you can put another photo here, and we'll get to that in just a second. So I am going to be about here. Okay, just stay there. All I'm doing off camera right now is just taking the backing off the tape. I don't want to bump my work that I've got right here in front of me, so I apologize. Okay. I want these centered as best as I can get them. Now I can finish this one. So on the inside here, you can use this 1/2-inch hinge. I'm actually going to cut strips to cover these. I should have done it before I started the video, but I will be covering these. But if you don't want to, you've got room to put in a photo that would line up with this. That's going to be 4 3/4 long, and then you can go the 3 1/2 inches in the height. So this will still hold a pretty good size photo. So now we're going to do this side. Let's get some tape on the back side of this. My tape is twisted, and so I'm struggling with keeping it straight. Okay, so we got that done. Let's go ahead and get these mounted. I did the same thing. Once I cut my strip, I cut that 1/2-inch piece so that it all kind of matched up. Okay, there's that one. And then there will be this one. I gotta look at something here. You know what? I'm gonna wipe that glue off. And I'm gonna use this side. So there's some kind of a pattern flow here. I love this side, but I am going to switch it up. Okay, so I'm going to go through that same process. I'm looking for an even balance. And again, I'm not going to disturb my work. I am picking the paper backing off camera. And then we'll get down here and get this one. See how it twisted? Gee, my knees. Okay, so there you've got, there are room here for 2, 4, 6, 8 photos. I can count. 8 photos plus a possibility of 2 more on the back side. So then you end up with a total of 12 photos. So this is done. I'm not doing any kind of a band to hold these simply because they're not any longer than 2. So they can just fold up and close. So then on the outside, I'm using this patterned paper and I'm just going to glue it. And I might be rethinking that magnet thing here in a second. We'll see. You may want to not close off everything. I'll show you what I'm talking about here in just a second. So once we get these 2 in here, when you open this up, these are going to flap, and that's not really what I intended. So I think I'm going to place a magnet here, and I'll come in on the back side for the other magnet, so we'll hold these down so that they stay in their place. If you want to create some kind of a little band that would come across and a magnet, I'm not going to do that because the intent is to put a photo here, and I wouldn't want a magnet up next to my photo. So let's see here. Oh, so you know what that meant? I should not have put this down. So I guess I'm stuck. Okay. Breathe. All right, so if you don't like this business here, you're either going to make a tag to come over and secure it down, which is now in hindsight I cannot do because I've sealed these with glue rather than tape. Now, my thought was to put a magnet here, but that meant I'd have to put a magnet on the back side of this because I'd already covered this. And you have to cover this in order to put these down. So my thought would be build this, put a magnet here, put your magnet on the outside, and then seal this with this paper. But I blew it, so it is what it is. All right, so on the outside here, I cut a diagonal piece that was, I do believe, 4 by 4. Yes. 4x4 square, cut it on the diagonal. It's going to go down here in the corner. And then I went to this paper to kind of give it some bright. And it's going to sit down here. And then I cut out the bow, and I am repeating that for this side. And that allows you a big spot here to put more photos. So I'm using skinny tape. I really didn't think, well, yeah, never mind, no excuses. I think you get how to fix the other side. My bad. I thought it through. I'm talking out loud here. I thought it through, but I was in the process of putting that paper down, and I just went ahead and did it without completing my thought. So and then we'll get these put on. They're just going to come down here, sit in the center, just like that. At least I did that right. I got to figure out a way how I'm going to fix that. Now this is the last signature, so I'm going to try and do this by piecemealing in some of the spare gems so that I don't have them floating around here. And I think that was it, so I'm going to cut a little bit off of this strip here. Okay. This bow's a little bit bigger, no big deal. Okay. Now we're going to have a top and a bottom flap. Bottom flap's just more functional to give a place for this, for me to place the magnets. It's really not going to do anything. But this is a piece I'm going to use. I came in and I cut out so that this was the framework that I would have when I was done. I wanted the emphasis that I did not want to have to cut into that, and I have a bit of a tear right there that I didn't notice. Not sure how that happened. Okay, all fixed. So this top flap measures at 8 1/4 inches, allowing for the excess that you're going to cut off. So you're going to end up at about 8 1/8. So you might actually want to start out about 8 3/8. so that if you lose a quarter trim or an eighth of a trim, that you'll be pretty close to what you need to have here. And it measures in width at 8 3/4 of an inch, because we need, again, like I've discussed in a previous build, is we need these edges to try and cover these edges as best as possible. So you're going to do a 1/2 inch score and a 5/8 of an inch score, so that this comes and wraps over the top of this like so. And to get it to wrap over the top, you're going to bring your work right up to that 5/8 score line, and then you're going to fold it over. So then this sits on the top. And then the piece for the bottom is going to measure in at the same, which is going to be 8 3/4 across. But this is going to measure in at 3 inches. You have a 1/2 inch score and a 5/8 of an inch score, and that's then going to tuck here at the bottom. Again, bringing your work right up to that 5/8 score line, and make sure you're even on your ends and your edges. Fold that over, there we go. And I rounded my corners on this one. So this piece here is what I cut off the bottom. And then I measured that in, and then I used this here as the trim. So this is what you're going to see. So when we put these together, you can see I cut about an inch or more than an inch off around the framework, because this is what I wanted inside this page. Now I need to think magnets before I go any farther. I'm going to use 2 sets, and they're going to need to go in the corners. And I'm going to have kind of a tight squeeze here. And then I'm going to put this one over here. All right, now put my spacers on. And then I'm going to grab 2 more. Okay. So now I'm going to eyeball this, make sure that I'm right on the edge. I hate to move so close, but I'm going to have to. I think I'm going to feel more comfortable putting them here. I'm right on the edge. If you have not cut this yet, cut this piece 1/4 of an inch bigger. You will probably need to keep some of it off this bottom trim. I know how to deal with it, but I don't want you having to mess with miscalculation on my part. Okay, so now I'm going to put some glue on both of these, so then when I close this, I will know where to put those magnets. Okay, now I can cover this up. And I'm going to have to pull some of that tape back just a little bit. Sorry, I'm kind of in cramped quarters right at the moment. If I move that up out of the way. I had a cutting error, and so I had to tape everything back together. Oh, come on. I just know you're going to move on me, and I don't want you to. I do not understand why that tape is not attaching. That is really starting to kind of annoy me a tad bit. So now I'm going to get this on here and seal up these magnets a bit. There we go. So the bottom flap is sealed. I'd rather deal with it if I... Okay, they're connecting. And I'm going to put this on the outside. Line that up. Okay, now we're going to work, I'm going to turn this over, we're going to work on this inside. So this was the piece that I chose to use. I forgot to... Now I'm going to take this off. And I'm going to pull this tape back just a little bit here because I don't want it showing. And then get this taped on. All right, I'm going to line this up here. That drives me crazy. Get that centered. Now we're going to put a pocket on here. It's not going to be a very big pocket, but we're going to utilize some of the trims that you took off of this main page. So when you look at the top of this, when you're trimming this, you're going to see the words Toy Shop all across the top. You're going to save that piece because you're going to trim it down so that you have about this much. I left a little doily look on it because it's going to go down through the center of this. So this measures, I do believe, 2 1/4 inches. 2 1/4 inches. Let me give you the width just because we changed that up by your 8 3/4 width. Line this up down here. And then I chose the reverse side of this, which has all the packages for this bottom pocket. And we got to have that row of gold bling. And then I'm going to take this piece that we cut out off the top of that where it says Toy Shop. I'm going to use that right in here. Now we've got a nice pocket there. And the last thing we need to do is cut a piece. I've chosen this. It matches off the base page. There's really not much you can do here. It's not big enough. There we go. We are all settled and done. So let's go ahead, let's turn it over, let's get our big tape out and get this secured in our album. My brain is still going, trying to figure out how I'm going to fix my waterfall situation, but you have every opportunity to fix yours by making the corrections that I indicated prior to you finishing up that one inside page. So I'll give you a second here and I'll go over it again. So when you're in here, put your magnet on the underside of this one right here. And Then when you close this, put the matching magnet, before this paper goes down, put the matching magnet on this side of the flap. Then when you put this paper over it, you're covering the magnet on this side. But then it will help hold these closed. Because I caught myself too late and I'd already glued these down, they were settled, I will think of something that I can do to close mine. And what I'm thinking about doing is creating a band with a 1/2 inch seam here top to bottom that will split, that will be a magnet close that can open and close this way and help keep these in their place when these open. So that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. And because that 1/2 inch is going to be here on the underside, when you open this up, you'll see it. I'll find matching paper to this piece right here, and I'll cover up that 1/2 inch seam so that it helps to hide that cardstock as best as possible. But that's about the only thing I can think of to correct this. So if you got this far and you're finding the same issue and you don't want to deal with these flapping back and forth, that would be how I would encourage you to correct it. So in the meantime, let's get this in our album. Oh, come on. Okay, so I'm going to take this just about to the end. Make sure I'm level top to bottom. And then I'll pick this out of here. I must have something on the end of my picker because it's picking the tape up as well. I'll clean it off here when I'm done. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to put that, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to put that band in here with a magnet in the center, and then I'll seal it off on the top. There we go. We made it through. If you have any questions on this last build, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. You can contact me directly at mymessyfingers55@gmail.com. It's easier that way than to be in the chat down below. So thank you for participating. I have another build coming up, so I hope to see you then. If you have not shopped at Scrap and Create yet, you should swing by there. She's got some pretty good deals going on, as well as this collection you can pick up. So I hope to see you on the next build. Bye-bye.